Hello students, Mr. Jen here. Welcome to Chapter 7, Lesson 1. Essentially, the war is won, independence is achieved. What are the colonies going to do with their newfound independence? Well, they're going to create a republic. Now, even before signing the Declaration of Independence, which is basically the birth of the United States of America, Congress started laying the foundation for the country and its government. In May of 1776, Congress told the states to write their own constitutions. Now, the folks writing them were understandably leery at the prospect of giving too much power to any one person, so they spread that power out. The power of the governor in these first constitutions for the states were limited. Pennsylvania didn't even have a governor. Their executive branch was a 12-man council. Most states set up bicameral houses. That means that their legislatures had two different houses, two different chambers, much like now we have a House of Representatives and a Senate. They both make up the legislature. That's how a lot of these first state legislatures were set up and even remain to this day. Now, since state governments had already been set up, with independence, a federal government basically needed to be established. Most agreed that the federal government needed limiting, with states having more of the power. All agreed that the new country should be a republic, with the people ruling through their elected representatives. In 1776, Congress set up a committee to build the first government in the United States. In 1777, Congress adopted the Articles of Confederation. This plan was not fully adopted by all states because all the states needed to accept it, and this didn't happen until 1781. Maryland was holding out as a result of a land dispute with other states, so they kept saying, well, we're not going to adopt the Articles until we get what we want. The Articles themselves were less of a constitution and basically more a resemblance of an alliance. Under the Articles, there was a legislature, but no executive or judicial branches. So that means no president and no court system, just a legislature. And the legislature that it did create was limited in power. Let's take a quick look. It had the power to declare war and make peace, maintain an army and navy, make treaties with other countries, borrow money, and establish a postal service. We talked about Ben Franklin being the first postmaster general. But the power it denied, well, like we said, no executive branch. It did not have the power to raise taxes. It could not stop states from printing their own money. It could not regulate trade with other countries or between states, and no court system. So the main problem with this is it had no ability to make money. It could ask the states for money, but the states didn't have to give it. Sort of like an allowance almost. Like, we need some money to go to the movie theater, but your parents won't give it to you. Same thing. The Congress should be like, we need money to pay off the war debts. We have a bunch of veterans we need to pay for their service in the Revolution. And the state would be like, here's $20. You get my drift here, though. The states were under no obligation to give that money. They just basically volunteered it. And this is going to cause problems. We're going to mention later in the lesson that they actually ended up, the government under the Articles ended up getting only like half the money it actually needed. So another issue was that the laws required 9 out of the 13 states to approve, and that was very hard to get. It was basically 13 independent countries trying to agree on laws, and it wasn't working very well. Any change to the Articles itself, like the change of the government, required 13 out of 13 states to approve. So that was almost impossible. I say it like this. It's imagine you have 13 different people, and you're trying to order lunch, and you're going to order pizza, but nobody can agree on the toppings because there are 13 people with 13 different tastes. So you're like, all right, we're going to try to get a pizza. Everybody likes pepperoni. And there's that one guy like, I'm allergic to pepperoni. Don't put pepperoni anywhere on it. We can't do halvesies. It was a problem. You'd probably throw up your hand and say, that's it. Everyone get their own lunch. And that's kind of what the problems were with the Articles. Now, despite the overwhelming issues facing the new country with its weak central government, the Articles Confederation is a very weak central government, the Congress was able to get some work done. They did, after all, negotiate a treaty with Britain, to end the revolution and managed to expand foreign trade. Another major accomplishment of the Congress during the Articles was to set up policies for expanding west and the creation of new states. The first such law was the Ordinance of 1785. Ordinance is basically a law. It basically surveyed all the land north of the Ohio River Valley, or the Ohio River, and set up a system to divide and sell it. Basically, they surveyed it and put it into acres, and they would sell these acres, and, well, we'll talk about it. It set it up to sell it so they could start selling that land. They basically organized it from like a big blob of land that we own into, all right, oh, that's not, this particular location, that's lot 462B. Now, the Northwest Ordinance passed in 1787 took that land that was surveyed and divided it into territories. When those territories reached a population of 60,000, they could apply for statehood. The Northwest Ordinance actually had a Bill of Rights attached to it, so settlers were ensured things like religious freedom, and it even prohibited slavery in these territories. These policies were set up in such a way to get people to try to move it in the Northwest Territories. Congress passed the Land Act of 1800 to make it even easier. They basically found like, hey, people aren't moving into these territories fast enough, so we're going to basically let them finance their purchases. Bless me. It basically set up a system of financing, so they could pay half off when they bought it and then pay the other half off over 4 years. So basically, they surveyed this territory with the first law, the Ordinance 1785, to set it up. They organized it basically. In 1787, they split it into these territories and made it so that when each territory got 60,000 people, they could become a state. And then the last one, the Land Act of 1800, set up a system of financing. So all this was made to get people to expand and move into these new territories. Now let's hit up problems back at home. Congress could not pass taxes, so they could not make revenue. This was a problem. They still owed money to soldiers of the Revolution. They had to ask the states for money, and the states provided less than half the funds the federal government actually needed. In Chapter 6, we mentioned the paper money that Congress printed. They were called Continentals. I have Continental right here. They were not backed up by enough silver or gold, and as a result, they depreciated, becoming almost worthless. They're probably worth something now. It's a cool historical piece. If any still exist even, paper tends to dissolve. Now, in 1781, the country's finances were in the dumps. They tried to resolve this by creating a Department of Finance led by a guy you may have heard of, Robert Morris. In Pittsburgh, you've heard of Robert Morris because we have Robert Morris University, RMU. Morris proposed a 5% import tax to pay off the debt. 12 of the 13 states approved, but Rhode Island refused. Jerk move, Rhode Island, I tell you. There's one in every group. Because they could not get this import tax passed under the Articles of Confederation, the financial situation continued to escalate. A quick note on foreign relations. It turns out Britain was not a graceful loser. They had agreed in the Treaty of Paris to remove all troops from their western forts, but they did not. There were still isolated forts manned by British soldiers. When the Americans sent John Adams to go to Britain and basically be like, hey, you agree to this, get your troops out of America, the British basically said, no, we're keeping them there. You guys agreed that you would pay the loyalists back for the land you stole from them during the Revolution, and you haven't done so. The problem here is, well, we already know the Congress doesn't have any money. They can't afford to pay off the loyalists. And so they said, hey, you states, with the money, you need to pay off the loyalists for the lands you took, and the states said no. And the Congress didn't have the power to do anything about it. Also, the British were blocking American ships from doing business in some of their ports like the West Indies. And basically, America couldn't do anything about it quite yet. Spain was also playing hard with the United States. They owned a lot of land to the west of where the United States was, and they were worried that they would expand into their territory, or try to. So they basically cut off shipping Western colonial shipping down the Mississippi River. The new Articles of Confederation government tried to hash out a trade deal with Spain, but basically the southern states wouldn't approve of it because there were parts of the deal that they didn't like. It wasn't good for them, so they refused to pass anything, and this little trade problem with the Mississippi River would continue. All these problems that plagued these articles were a worry to the United States, their leaders, including important men like George Washington. And that left everything in sort of a pickle. Now we're going to learn more in the next lesson, basically how everyone sees all these problems and the government can't fix it because the government's too weak, and we're going to have a constitutional convention and fix these problems. For now, go ahead and take the quiz and let me know if you have any questions, and we'll pick back up tomorrow. Have a great day.